Welcome to TKO on Joe, together with 32 Red. We're coming to you from a place that I don't think I ever thought we would be. This is Deer Lake, Muhammad Ali's training camp throughout most of the 1970s. Now, for the hardcore fans of the sport, the man needs no explanation. For the casual fans of the sport, the same applies. He's probably the most famous sportsman of all time, let alone the most famous heavyweight boxer of all time. He was born in Louisville, Kentucky. He was a standout amateur in the 1950s, culminated his amateur career with a gold medal at the Rome Olympics in 1960 at light heavyweight, turned professional. He was brilliant inside the ring, he was brilliant out. In 1967, the WBC and the WBA titles that he held after beating Sonny Liston in '64 were stripped of him when he refused to enter into the draft, go to Vietnam and fight a war on behalf of a country that he felt wasn't fighting for his rights as a black man. Then he decided to make a few changes. He had 2 comeback fights and then of course fought Joe Frazier in that unbelievable fight of the century, lost that contest and felt that perhaps the media spotlight and the kind of presence that was on him in terms of the public gaze and everything that he stood for was becoming a little too much, and he wanted to get away somewhere that was a little more peaceful. And that brings us here to Pennsylvania. This is Deer Lake, or Fighter's Heaven as he called it. It was a place that he built from scratch. So today we're going to be walking around this incredible place with 2 tour guides who know the man well, knew the man very, very well. This is Deer Lake and this is TKO.
Joe presents TKO, together with 32 Red.
Those were, the boxers used to live in those.
Right.
Sparring boxers and all used to live in those. You know, different people.
Larry Holmes was here a lot in the early 70s, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was here, I guess, when Larry Holmes put Ollie on the canvas.
Really?
Yeah.
So you saw that?
Yeah.
Because some of the spars, I mean, there's some old footage of the spars here in the cabin,
yeah.
and it was hardcore sparring. I mean, there was no holding back. It was war.
Oh no. Well, he brought him in to fight George Foreman, you know, the hard hitters, you know, and they really got on him, you know?
Yeah.
And he was gone the next day. He was out. He was trying to make a name for himself.
Yeah.
And he was gone. So that was interesting.
So you grew up?
I grew up just up the street. I'll show you where my original homestead was.
Okay.
But I bought that house in '79. Yeah.
So at that time, he'd been in exile for 3 years, refusing to go to the Vietnam War in the draft.
Right.
He'd obviously been almost outlawed by society, reappeared, lost the fight of the century to Joe Frazier, and then obviously made those changes and decided to base himself somewhere away from the media and away from the public. Well, how much of the kind of a buzz was there around this town and this sort of constituency when the news broke that he was going to set up camp here? Was it a huge thing?
He was very well accepted. You know what I mean? It was, you know, after during the '60s, you know, and then the civil rights thing and all. To me, it was, you know, wow, you know, this is, you know, it wasn't a matter of white or black. It was the guy came to our area. And actually, I was around it because in '66, when Ernie Terrell came here to fight, okay, he trained in the camp, I'll show you, the original camp. And I was probably maybe, it's '66, I was 10 years old. So, and I remember riding on a school bus and seeing this guy jogging along the school bus, 6'6", you know, he was like thinking, that's a big guy, you know. We snuck up here. It was before the Frazier fight, and we came up and there was people all around the gym. We couldn't get in the place, so we snuck around at the back door here. This back door back here. This came out further, and it was a boxer's room, a rub down room and all. So we snuck in the door and Boudini Brown was back here, and he went like this. Shh. He said, "Come on in." Well, he opened the door up. Ollie was sitting in the corner of that ring, and there was people here, and he was sitting down talking very softly. He used to do that to command respect so people would listen. And that lower door down there, which was out further, came swinging open, and out came a gorilla. Somebody in a gorilla outfit. and he's jumping around, and Ollie jumped up in his quiet talk and said, "There's Joe Frazier. He's too ugly to be champion." He says, and that's that whole thing started.
Of course,
that whole, you've seen that, you know. And they're, "I'm going to fight him now. Hold me back," and they're holding him back, and it was all really a political. And I'm sitting there and thinking, "Oh my goodness, he's making fun of him, you know." It's like he's one of him, and he's making fun of him, you know. But we didn't think about like stuff like that, you know. But he was really he was a good man. He knew how to get to his opponents, and he knew how to promote.
But I guess the amazing thing now is when you think how secretive sparring sessions are amongst the main sort of protagonists in the sport. As a member of the public, you couldn't go in and watch Canelo Alvarez spar. Right. You couldn't go and watch, Anthony Joshua spar. But in those days, he would openly invite members of the public to come and sit in and watch.
Oh yeah.
Which is so. It seems so strange.
I think the rope-a-dope. I was interviewed about this quite a few years ago, and we didn't know it was a rope-a-dope. But I remember them playing with the ropes, size of the ring, looseness of the ropes.
Yeah, so he could.
He could lean and get back. You know, all of that stuff was negotiated before these fights of what they would agree to. And I remember the reporter saying, "So you, at the age of what, knew about the rope-a-dope before it was even known as the rope-a-dope?" I said, "Yeah, we didn't know it was called that, but after this all happened, it's like, that's what they were doing up there. They were playing with the ropes, making it so that he could lean back, because he was so fast, he could lean back and get away from these punches, tire the guy out, you know."
Because he was tough to the body, but obviously with the heavy-handedness of George Foreman, he needed to make sure that he could ride those shots upstairs, and that's what he did. And it was the 8th round in Zaire, where he landed that flurry of punches, having not done very much.
He knew he was tired. Yeah. He knew this moment he'd go after him. "You're tired, now I'm rested," because you've missed most of those fights.
Amazing finish.
And he would time that out for maybe 1 or 2 rounds. If you watch a lot of his fights, he did that a lot, in his fights. You'd see him covering up and saying, come on, and tire someone out. And he would know by the sting of the punch, he's starting to get tired, and then he would come after him.
So how many people, when you would come up here, how many people would be up here?
I mean, there'd be sometimes there wouldn't be anybody up here. We would come up at nighttime, and he'd say, "Come on back up," and we would sit over in the corner here and watch reel-to-reel films of Jack Johnson, which you got a style from. All these old fights, and then he'd send somebody out. He'd say, "Hey, get some ice cream," and they'd bring ice cream back for the kids and stuff, But it was just, like I said, it was just a different time, you know what I mean? And when he was in Deer Lake, I rode my bike there, and then when I got my license, and it was a 16, and they built this up here in '71, and I could drive up. I'd bring my buddies up, But it was, it was a neat time,
Did you understand, like, as a kid, you obviously don't understand the historical relevance of what you're going through, because I suppose it was relatively normal for you. But did you understand how special it was?
Well, somewhat, but more so later in life. It's like, man, we really lived a part of history here that it kind of took for granted. It was here.
I can remember there was an interview he did with, I think when he very first opened it, maybe it was David Crouse, it was with CBS, I think. And they sat in the ring and did the interview. That may have been before one of the Frazier fights, but I can remember seeing that interview. And actually, as soon as I walked in here, I thought, this is exactly what it looked and felt like. And they had an audience on kind of stools and stuff sitting around here. I think that was the thing about him. He was so famous, but his accessibility at the same time was almost unrivaled, given how famous he was. Right. Did you get that sense when you were around him that he was an accessible man, that you could just be around him?
Yeah. I mean, it's we took tours, and we went down into his bunkhouse one day. We were here, and he was giving tours, and we just kind of followed along. And I remember him going into his bunkhouse and saying, this is where he lives. He says, and he said, "I'm so fast when I turn the lights out, I'm in bed before it gets dark."
One of my favorites. Yeah.
I heard him actually say that here.
Did you hear him say that?
Yeah, he said it to those people here.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, and then years later when you heard this thing, it was like, I heard that.
The thing about when you're in a closed environment and you watch sparring is you can hear and feel the punches in a different way, even if you go to watch a fight live.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to talking about watching the Holmes and Ali spars. From the small clips that I've seen online, I used to watch as a teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, they really went at it, because you get the impression that Holmes was kind of in his shadow and modelled himself on Ali stylistically. He always said, I used to try and time my jab with his jab to make mine quicker than his.
Right.
Holmes went on to have arguably the best jab in heavyweight history.
Yeah.
Sparring these days, a lot of it's technical work, and guys will have a certain amount of respect. But from the clips I've seen, those two, they just went toe to toe. Can you remember hearing it and watching it thinking, this is just vicious?
Oh yeah. I mean, when you heard that hit, that leather, boom, boom, it's like, how can they not go down? You know, we're going with it, you know, absorbing it. That shock absorber, getting away from it. You're still getting hit. I don't care what it is, you know. And some of them had a glass jaw, and others, you know, were different.
Let's kind of like start right in here, and the reason why I want to start in here, all these rocks as you see them, it was Cassius Clay Sr. that painted them, and they all have a significance to Muhammad Ali, why he was so successful, who he admired. He wanted to make sure that that those names were also preserved. Rocky Marciano, the only undefeated heavyweight champion. People don't know that. 49-0.
Yeah.
You guys would know. You're very big boxing fans. The average boxing fan may not know it. They try to bring Larry Holmes out of retirement. He was 48
yeah.
and he got beaten. That was the end of his ambition. There's Angelo Dundee, his trainer. A rock dedicated to him. Wow. Archie Moore. The champ gave him a shot at the title, Archie Moore. You got Joe Frazier
in his
over
early
here.
days, wasn't it? He said I'm gonna button the lip of the Louisville lip. So then were they? You mentioned that they were speaking in later life. Did they kind of become friends later on? Because I actually didn't like him to start with.
After Ali was done beating up on his opponents, they became friends. Even with Joe Frazier, Joe made a trip up here. When you beat the opponent or the opponent beats you, you gain a tremendous amount of respect. That respect goes a long, long way. Years later, you're friends. You're all friends. As a sports writer, I wrote sports for 42 years. As a sports writer, I always called it, I realized, I should say, that sports is it's the bridge that brings everybody together.
Great equalizer.
Right, it's the equalizer. As we walk inside the gym here, you're going to see some fantastic pictures. The pictures itself say 1,000 words. I hate to be cliche-ish, but it's all about the pictures. Over here is how it basically started. This is the start of the camp itself. The rocks were brought in by several local coal barons. Here he is by the mosque, and if you look outside, you'll see the mosque. It has not changed one iota.
No.
Here's the Foreman fight, the rope-a-dope.
Which apparently they practiced, as we were hearing from David Crouse earlier, they practiced in here, kind of making the top ropes a little bit more lax. And
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to think that before that was the thing that it became, that people saw it in action here.
Actually, I talked to Kilroy about it because they said, Gene, I said, did Angelo come up with that scheme? He said, no. He said, Ali always had his own game plan. Ali was a different type of boxer, and when he was up against the ropes in the fight with and Angelo said, get off the ropes, and he was protecting himself with his arms. He put his arms up. And he felt he could tire him out. You got to realize that fight was started at 3:30 in the morning. The heat was oppressive back then. And he knew his game plan was, let's tire him out and then I'll go after him, and he did. As we move on here, we have a picture of Elvis Presley, and some people will tell you he was here. We leave that as urban legend.
Okay, I always like to believe that it was, so
we'll let it go.
I'll make my own mind up.
Here's Aunt Coretta. They brought her in to do the cooking for the champ, and then we'll go over into the kitchen. She chased you right out, they claim. Here's Kilroy's corner. We have Mike felt all the help that Gene Kilroy gave us, and he needed to dedicate a piece of the history to Gene Kilroy. He lives in Vegas. He's been out there for a long time. Very well noted man, an executive in the casino world, and what a fantastic guy he is. He knows more people than you realize.
We spent some time with him a few years ago, and it was like he can open the keys to any door in the world of boxing.
Yes, he can.
Anyone. Well, you couldn't believe some of the people he helped us to secure. He takes no prisoners either, does he, Jim?
No. Good way of putting it. Here he is. He was a best man at one of his weddings.
Wow.
And I'll tell you how close he was. He was a pallbearer for his mother and father. So that's how close he was. As you can see, here's the Frazier fight. I think that's the third Frazier fight, if I'm not mistaken. After that third fight, Gene Kilroy told people they should bar boxing. It was that brutal. Ali made the comment, he felt that the closest thing to death. Yep. They were in a hurry to get the champ matched up once he got his license back. And very, very interesting story. I don't know if any of you realize how he got that license back. And I point to Gene Kilroy. Gene was very close with the Kennedy family and Teddy Kennedy. And they made a call to one of I believe the governor of Mississippi. Yeah, we'll get him a license. Well, it turns out they were only getting him a permit. And the permit was not going to do it, Kilroy said. So then they made a call down to, Teddy makes a call down to Atlanta. And he had an influence down there, and they said yes. That's how it all started. Okay. They were able to bring him out of exile, as we would call it. In here is the rub-down room. And he'd sit here and hold court. There are some writings, I don't know if they can capture it, when he would doodle after his workout that day.
Oh, is this the original?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the original.
So there's like a height chart here. I guess for some of the kids maybe who were coming in and measuring themselves. Oh, Muhammad's cheerleaders. Yeah. There's a list of women there.
Quite the iconic part, if you will, to preserve the history of it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Here's a scale. I don't want to get on there. I might.
Yeah. Well, if it says too much, you can say it's incorrect.
We'll take some more walks over here.
Please. Lead the way.
Come on, we'll take you into the kitchen where the champ had all of his meals.
Rules of My Kitchen, spelled K-Y-T-C-H-E-N.
That's my spelling, guys.
Is it?
That's my, no, that's Aunt Coretta. She got her point across. It caught your eye, I'm sure, like it catches everybody's eye. Jeez, but Aunt Coretta was this was the, as far as you would get.
Okay, so that was off limits, right. Cooking for a lot of hungry mouths every day. Some women, right?
3 days a week. 3 days a day, 3 meals a day.
3 meals a day.
Probably, and you probably got some extras, a sandwich or.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, Gene Kilroy says Ali loved his chocolate cake, steak and chocolate cake.
Seeing handwritten recipes by Lana Shabazz, who of course was the daughter of Malcolm X, and he and Ali were great friends in the kind of early 60s and late 60s, and they drifted a little after kind of disagreements around the Nation of Islam. But he always said one of his biggest regrets was that they hadn't properly reconciled before his death. And I think he always felt that was one thing.
Yeah, Ali didn't want to have enemies. No. There's a lot of people that thought he was that Ali wasn't the guy he was, but he was truly the man he was. He lived by his convictions, and he proved it.
Okay.
You want to play? You can play with the bell. Come on, we'll go over here.
I want to play with the bell. I want to play with the well.
We'll get the well run. We'll get the run. All you got to do is pull on it. But every morning at 4:30, this bell rings. And then he points up there and he said, every one of those fighters up there have to be dressed and ready to go at 5 a.m. And they ring the bell. Pull it and let it go. But
so yeah, he talked about drinking the well water.
There you go.
And this is the well.
Start pumping it. If you pump it, go ahead, you can pump it. We'll let you pump it. The kids have a great time with this. We bring the kids.
This is a good workout in itself.
It's a workout. There you go.
Oh.
It's cold as ice.
Oh, on a day like today, that's good. Oh, that's really good.
This is where Ali lived when they built this special cabin for him. He wanted to live like his ancestors. There was no running water in there. The heat was supplied by a coal burner, and you'll see that when we go in there. and no electricity. You live by lamp. So come on in. Welcome to the Ollie cabin.
Wow.
As you can see, we've tried to replicate it to the best of our ability.
It's great.
I told you about, before we came in here, we had a little discussion outside. These are paratrooper boots.
Oh, they're the famous, he used to run in those.
He ran in those.
Yeah.
And a guy from my hometown of Shenandoah, his name is Mickey Thomas. He was an airborne ranger, 3 tours of duty in Vietnam, 2 Silver Stars. The only thing higher than a Silver Star is a Congressional Medal of Honor in the United States service. He gave those to the champ. They put a little heavier sole on them so it would make him work harder. But the champ, they had to get him out of here because, yes, there's a smell in here. It's called creosote. Creosote was used back in the day to soak the logs on the train. The train, the rails and those ties, they were soaked in creosote. Creosote preserved wood, unbelievable. Today you can't use it. Environmentally, it's not safe. And Ollie was getting sick. The champ stayed over there after they pulled him out of the Ollie house. This is the mosque. The turret is lit up at night. Come on in. We try to replicate it as much as possible. The carpeting is a little different. That's 1970 style. It's a little bit, it's orange. But again, Mike likes to keep everything almost exactly the way it is. Come on over here, I'll take a picture of you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. This has been so fantastic. Honestly,
I'm glad you.
This has been I had
I'm
such
glad
a great
you
day.
came.
Thank you. I'm so pleased. Well, another episode of TKO on Joe together with 32 Red done and dusted. It's taken us to some pretty special locations. This, for me, so far has been the most memorable, something I've wanted to do for half my life. It's come to Deer Lake, take a look around it, but having done so with David Crouse and Sam Matta, with their expertise and their memories, has made it even more special. So thank you very much to both gents. All that leaves me to do is say thank you for watching at home, and I will leave you with views of the stunning Deer Lake. We'll see you next week.
You've been watching TKO on Joe, together with 32 Red.